My wife took everything in the divorce. The house, the car, half my savings, and I signed every paper with a smile on my face. 2 years later, my phone rang at midnight. It was her. She was crying so hard I barely recognized her voice. Now folks, Uncle Mickle here. And before you judge me for that smile, before you think you know where this story's headed, I want you to hear it straight from the man who lived it. Because this isn't about revenge the way you think it is. It's about patience. It's about silence. And it's about what happens when someone mistakes your calm for weakness. I was sitting alone in my apartment when that call came through. Cheap place. Thin walls. The kind of place where you can't hear your neighbor sneeze and feel the heater knock like it's got something to say. Midnight has a way of making everything feel heavier, doesn't it? The world goes quiet, and whatever you've been avoiding finally finds you. I remember staring at my phone as it buzzed on the table. Her name lit up the screen. Same name I hadn't deleted. Same number I swore I wouldn't answer if it ever called again. But I did. Because part of me knew. This call didn't come out of nowhere. Let me take you back for a second. Not too far. Just far enough so you understand why that smile I wore in court wasn't weakness. It was a promise. A quiet one I made to myself while everyone else thought I was broken. 2 years earlier, I'd walked out of a courthouse with nothing but a cardboard box and a pen that barely worked. That pen signed away the life I'd spent nearly 20 years building. Friends asked me if I was okay. My brother asked me if I needed a lawyer to fight harder. Even the clerk looked at me funny when I didn't argue. But I didn't fight. I nodded. I thanked everyone. And I smiled. Inside, though, inside I was burning so quietly I was afraid I might disappear. See, people think the worst part of betrayal is the anger. It's not. The worst part is realizing the person you trusted most had been planning your exit long before you ever sensed the door closing. That kind of realization doesn't explode. It settles. It sinks. And it changes how you see everything. Back then, I told myself I was done. Done with the past. Done with her. Done with asking why. I told myself walking away clean was the strong thing to do. But here's the truth, folks. Walking away doesn't mean forgetting. And staying quiet doesn't mean you don't notice things. When that midnight call came in, 2 years of silence collapsed into one breath. I could hear panic in her voice before she even spoke. Not sadness. Not regret. Fear. And as I listened to her sob into the phone, something inside me went still. Not cold. Not cruel. Clear. Because in that moment, I understood something that took me a long time to learn. Sometimes life doesn't need you to fight back right away. Sometimes it just needs you to wait. And trust me when I say this, that call didn't happen by accident. Before everything broke, before lawyers and late-night phone calls, and that smile everyone keeps asking me about, life was steady. Not exciting in a movie kind of way. Just solid. Predictable. The kind of life you don't brag about because you assume it'll always be there. We lived in a modest 2-story house on a quiet street. Same neighbors for years. Same dog barking 2 houses down. Same porch light flickering because I never quite got around to fixing it. Saturday mornings smelled like coffee and toast. Sundays meant yard work, then takeout on the couch. Nothing fancy. Just routine. My wife, Jennifer, liked order. She liked lists on the fridge and color-coded calendars. I liked things a little looser. Somehow, for a long time, those differences fit together. I handled the bills. She handled the social plans. I fixed things around the house. She remembered birthdays and anniversaries. We joked that we covered each other's blind spots. Looking back now, I can see how comfortable we'd become. Too comfortable, maybe. But at the time, it felt earned. We'd been through job changes, a couple of rough financial patches, health scares with our parents. Stuff that bonds you. Stuff that makes you think, if we got through that, we'll get through anything. Evenings were usually quiet. We'd sit at opposite ends of the couch, TV murmuring in the background, both of us half on our phones. Sometimes she'd show me something funny she found online. Sometimes I'd tell her about work. Not deep conversations, but familiar ones. Safe ones. And that's the thing about safety. When you've had it long enough, you stop checking if the doors are locked. Inside, I felt content. Not passionate. Not thrilled, but grounded. There's a difference folks don't talk about enough. Passion burns hot but fast. Grounded keeps you standing when the wind picks up. I thought we were grounded. We talked about the future in practical terms. Retirement accounts. Fixing up the kitchen one day. Maybe downsizing when we got older. There was no drama in those conversations. No raised voices. No slammed doors. If you'd asked me back then how my marriage was, I'd have said, good, solid. And I would have meant it. But comfort can hide distance if you're not careful. Jennifer started spending more time out of the house. Nothing suspicious on the surface. Book club, work dinners, helping a friend through a rough patch. I didn't question it. Why would I? Trust had been built brick by brick over years. Sometimes she'd come home tired and distracted. She'd smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. I chalked it up to stress. We all carry our own weights, right? There were still laughs. Still shared meals. Still good night, kisses that felt routine but sincere enough. Or so I thought. One evening stands out now, though it didn't then. We were washing dishes together. I dropped a plate, and it shattered on the floor. We both froze for a second. She looked at the mess, then at me, and sighed. Not angry, just distant, like her mind was somewhere else entirely. You okay? I asked. Yeah, she said quickly. Too quickly. Just tired. That was it. Nothing dramatic. But something about the way she turned back to the sink stayed with me. Like a door had closed softly, without a sound. I remember lying in bed that night, staring at the ceiling fan, feeling a faint unease I couldn't name. No evidence. No accusations. Just a quiet thought I pushed away, because it didn't fit the life I believed I had. Now, let me ask you something before I go further. Have you ever had that gut feeling that something was off, but you ignored it because you didn't want to believe it? Tell me in the comments. I want to know I'm not alone in this. Because that night, I told myself I was overthinking. I told myself long marriages go through phases. I told myself trust meant not looking for shadows where there were none. And I went to sleep believing everything was still solid. But somewhere deep down, a small crack had formed. I just didn't know yet how wide it would become. The first real crack didn't come with shouting or accusations. It came quietly, the way most life-changing things do, dressed up as something harmless. It started with her phone. Jennifer had always been casual about it. Left it on the counter. Tossed it on the couch. Sometimes I'd grab it for her if she asked me to check a message while her hands were full. No passwords I didn't know. No tension around it. Then, slowly, that changed. She began keeping it face down, always within reach. If it buzzed, she'd check it fast, then slide it back into her pocket, like nothing happened. I noticed it, but I didn't say anything. I told myself people get protective about privacy. That wasn't a crime. One evening, we were sitting in the living room, TV on low. I asked her a simple question, something about dinner plans for the weekend. She didn't answer right away. Her eyes were locked on her screen, her thumb moving fast. Too fast. Jen, I said again. She jumped. Actually jumped. Oh, sorry, she said, forcing a laugh. What did you say? That laugh didn't sound like her. It was higher, thinner, like it had been borrowed. Still, I let it go. The next thing was work. Or at least, that's what she said it was. Late meetings. Weekend projects. Names I didn't recognize. Again, nothing I could point to and say, that's it. That's the lie. Just accumulation. You live with someone long enough. You learn their rhythms. You can tell when they're tired versus distracted. When they're stressed versus hiding something. Her rhythm was off. Like a song played half a beat too fast. One night, I woke up around 2 in the morning. The bed beside me was empty. Light was coming from the hallway. I found her in the kitchen, sitting at the table, phone pressed to her ear, whispering. She looked up when she saw me. Panic flashed across her face before she covered it. I couldn't sleep, she said quickly, hanging up. Just talking to Lisa. She's having a hard time. Lisa was a friend of hers. At least, I thought she was. Everything okay? I asked. Yeah, she said. Too fast again. Go back to bed. I stood there for a second longer than necessary. Not arguing. Not accusing. Just observing. She would meet my eyes. That was the moment my instincts finally spoke louder than my excuses. I didn't confront her. Not yet. I've always believed accusations, without proof, only make liars smarter. So I watched. Quietly. Carefully. I noticed she started dressing differently for those work dinners. A little more effort. A little more perfume. Not every time. Just enough to notice. I noticed she stopped talking about the future. No more kitchen remodel talk. No retirement jokes. Everything was suddenly about now. About being tired. About stress. About space. And then there was the email. It wasn't snooping. I want to be clear about that. We shared a computer. One afternoon, I sat down to pay bills. Her email was open. A message preview sat there, glowing like it wanted to be seen. Can't stop thinking about last night. That was it. No sender name I recognized. Just that line. My stomach didn't drop. It went numb. Like my body decided feeling nothing was safer than feeling everything. I didn't open it. I didn't need to. I closed the laptop and sat there for a long time, hands resting on my knees, breathing slow, controlled, almost calm. That's when I realized something important. I wasn't shocked. I was disappointed. Not in her. In myself. Because deep down, I'd known something was wrong long before that screen confirmed it. I just hadn't wanted to listen. From that day on, I paid attention in a different way. Not with hope. Not with denial. With clarity. And clarity has a way of changing how you move through the world. Folks, pause for a second. What would you have done in my position? Would you have confronted her right then, demanded answers, maybe blown everything up in one night? Or would you have waited, watched, gathered the truth piece by piece? Drop your answer below. I'm genuinely curious what you would have chosen, because the path I took next wasn't loud, but it was decisive. And once I started down it, there was no turning back. Once you stop pretending, the truth doesn't rush at you. It seeps in. Slow. Relentless. Every little detail suddenly carries weight. I didn't hire a private investigator. I didn't check phone records or hide cameras. I didn't need to. When someone starts living a double life, they leave fingerprints everywhere. They just assume you won't look. Jennifer became careless. Not bold. Careless. That's an important difference. She started slipping up with her stories. One night, she said a work dinner was canceled. The next day, she mentioned the restaurant in passing. When I asked how she knew about the new menu, she froze for half a second too long before covering it with a shrug. Someone mentioned it, she said. Someone. That word started showing up a lot. Her mood shifted fast. She'd be distant for days, then suddenly affectionate out of nowhere. Not warm. Not connected. Just checking a box. Like she needed to remind herself how to act married. I remember standing in the doorway one evening, watching her get ready. She didn't notice me. She was smiling at her reflection, not a polite smile. A private one. The kind you don't share. That's when it hit me. Whatever was happening didn't belong to me anymore. The confirmation came on a Tuesday afternoon. Ordinary day. I came home early with a headache. Her car wasn't in the driveway, which made sense. She'd said she was working late. I walked into the house and felt it immediately. The air was different. Lighter. Like someone had been there and taken something with them. On the kitchen counter sat 2 wine glasses. One with lipstick. One without. I stood there staring at them longer than I'd like to admit. My first thought wasn't anger. It was logistics. How long ago? Why here? Did they think I wouldn't notice? I washed the glasses. Slowly. Carefully. Like if I broke one, something inside me might shatter with it. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay there listening to the clock tick, each second louder than the last. When Jennifer finally came home, she slid into bed without a word. I could smell wine on her breath. And something else. Something unfamiliar. I didn't turn toward her. The next morning, she sat across from me at the table, sipping coffee like nothing had changed. She asked about my headache. She asked what I wanted for dinner later that week. And that's when I knew. This wasn't confusion. This was a decision she'd made long ago. A few days later, the truth finished revealing itself without effort. A mutual acquaintance mentioned seeing Jennifer out with a friend. Said friend had a name. Michael. Married. 2 kids. I nodded. Thanked them for the information. Drove home in silence. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I sat in my car with the engine off and stared at my hands until they stopped shaking. When I confronted her, it wasn't dramatic. No yelling. No accusations. Just a statement. I know, I said. Her face went white. No denial. No confusion. Just resignation. How long? I asked. She looked away. Does it matter? That answer hurt more than any lie could have. In that moment, something fundamental broke. Not my heart. My illusion. The marriage I thought I had didn't exist anymore. Maybe it hadn't for a long time. I need you to understand something here. This wasn't just betrayal. This was my whole life crumbling. Have you ever been blindsided like this? Someone you trusted completely, just destroying everything? Share your story below if you've been there. Let's heal together. We talk logistics after that. Calmly. Almost professionally. She wanted space. She wanted clarity. I wanted honesty, but that ship had sailed. Divorce papers followed soon after. She was prepared. Very prepared. I wasn't. The house. The car. The savings. Lawyers spoke. Numbers moved. And I sat there nodding, signing, smiling like a man who didn't care. But inside, folks, inside, I was standing in the rubble of a life I thought was real. And at that point, standing there with nothing left, I had to make a choice. Break or rebuild. There's a strange calm that comes after everything collapses. Not peace. Not relief. Just quiet. Like the moment after a storm passes through and you're standing in the wreckage, waiting to see what's still standing. That was me after the divorce. I moved into a small apartment across town. Nothing special. Cheap rent. Neutral walls. Furniture that echoed when you sat down. At first, it felt temporary, like I'd wake up and realize this was all some extended bad dream. But mornings kept coming. I'd wake up alone. Make coffee for one. Sit at the kitchen table and stare at nothing in particular. Friends checked in at first, then less often. Life has a way of moving on even when you don't feel ready. That's when I made a decision that surprised even me. I stopped asking why. Why she did it. Why I didn't see it sooner. Why love turned into paperwork and silence. Those questions don't heal you. They just keep the wound open. Instead, I started asking what now. I took a long look at myself. Not the angry version. Not the broken one. The honest one. The man who'd ignored his instincts because peace felt easier than conflict. The man who trusted without checking whether trust was still being earned. I didn't hate Jennifer. That's important. Hate keeps you tied to the person who hurt you. I wanted freedom, not a lifelong argument playing in my head. So I focused on rebuilding. Quietly. I worked more. Saved what little I could. Cooked for myself. Took long walks in the evenings, just to hear my own thoughts again. Some nights were harder than others. Some nights the silence felt too loud. But slowly, something shifted. I started sleeping better. Thinking clearer. Laughing again, not because things were funny, but because I remembered how. And during all of that, I kept my distance. No calls. No messages. No checking social media. I let her life be hers, and mine become mine again. That smile I wore in court, it wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't surrender. It was acceptance. I accepted that fighting her would keep me stuck in the past. I accepted that proving her wrong wouldn't heal me. I accepted that the best revenge, if you want to call it that, was to become unrecognizable to the man she thought she'd outgrown. Still, I paid attention. Not to her, to patterns, to people, to how things tend to unfold when someone builds a life on dishonesty. I noticed something interesting over time. The friends we shared started drifting away from her. Conversations became awkward. Invitations stopped coming. Affairs don't just break marriages. They fracture communities. I heard things through the grapevine. Michael's marriage imploded. Workplace rumors followed. Nothing I caused. Nothing I encouraged. Just consequences doing what they do. And through it all, I stayed quiet. That silence, it wasn't weakness. It was control. I didn't need to confront. I didn't need to expose. Life was handling that part just fine. By the end of the first year, I was okay. Not happy. Not healed. But stable. I'd rebuilt my routine. My confidence. My sense of self. By the end of the second year, I'd started dating again. Casually. Carefully. No promises. No illusions. Just connection. That's when the past came knocking. Literally. The call didn't come right away. It waited. Like life wanted to make sure I was standing strong before testing me again. And when that midnight call finally did come, I understood exactly why it was happening. Because the person who takes everything and walks away assumes you'll always be there, broken, bitter, waiting. She didn't expect silence. She didn't expect growth. And she definitely didn't expect me to be okay. Here's where I made my choice. And now I want to know, do you believe in revenge? Or do you believe in walking away? What's the right move when someone destroys your trust? Comment below. I want to hear both sides. Because the next part of this story, that's where patience met opportunity. And everything changed. The phone rang 3 times before I answered. Not because I was debating. Because I was breathing. Hello, I said. At first, all I heard was crying. Not quiet tears. Not polite sniffles. This was raw. Ugly. The kind that shakes your chest and steals your breath. Mickle, she said. My name sounded broken in her mouth. Yes, I replied. Calm. Even. I didn't know who else to call, she said, words tumbling over each other. I'm so sorry it's late. I'm scared. There it was. The word I'd heard in her voice the moment I saw her name on my screen. Fear. She talked fast. Too fast. Lost her job. The company downsized, she said. Michael was gone. Not just from her life, but from town. His ex-wife had taken him to court. Money was tight. The house had problems. The roof. The plumbing. Bills stacking up. Friends not answering anymore. I didn't think it would all fall apart like this, she whispered. I really didn't. I said nothing. She mistook my silence for concern and kept going. I know I hurt you, she said, voice cracking. I know I don't deserve it, but you always knew how to fix things. You always knew what to do. That sentence landed harder than anything else she'd said. Not you cared about me. Not I miss us. But you were useful. My heart wasn't racing. My hands weren't shaking. I felt steady. Grounded. Like a man standing on solid ground, watching a storm pass somewhere else. She cried harder when I didn't respond. Please, she said. I just need help. Advice. Something. I don't know what to do anymore. This was the moment. The one people imagine when they talk about revenge. The part where you yell. Or gloat. Or finally let all the hurt spill out. I didn't do any of that. I waited until she ran out of words. Until the silence forced her to face the weight of the calls she'd made. Then I spoke. I can't help you, I said. Just like that. She inhaled sharply. What? I can't help you, I repeated. Not angry. Not cold. Just honest. But, Mickle, I'm not asking for money, she said quickly. I just need. I know what you're asking for, I said gently. And I'm still saying no. She started crying again. Softer this time. Defeated. I thought you loved me, she said. I closed my eyes for a moment. Not because it hurt, but because I wanted to answer carefully. I did, I said. Back when it mattered. She went quiet. And that's why I'm saying this, I continued. The man who fixed everything for you, the man who carried the weight, so you didn't have to, you left him. You signed those papers, remember? Her breathing was uneven now. I'm not punishing you, I said. I'm respecting the choice you made. Mid-climax, let me ask you something. Are you rooting for me right now? Or do you think I went too far? Be honest in the comments. Uncle Mickle can take it. She tried one last time. I made a mistake, she whispered. I lost everything. I didn't raise my voice. No, I said. You traded it. 5 words. Calm. Clean. Final. She didn't respond. After a few seconds, the line went dead. I set the phone down and sat there in the quiet apartment, listening to the hum of the refrigerator, the distant sound of traffic outside. My heart felt light. Not victorious. Free. Because the truth is, folks, the real power wasn't saying no. It was realizing I didn't feel the need to say anything else. After that call ended, I didn't sit there replaying it over and over like I might have once. I didn't pace. I didn't pour a drink. I didn't feel that rush people expect after a big moment. I just sat. Not empty. Not shaken. Just still. And that's how I knew something had truly changed. In the days that followed, I kept expecting some emotional aftershock. Guilt. Sadness. Regret. But it never came. What I felt instead was a quiet certainty that I'd finally closed a door I'd been standing in for too long. Life didn't magically improve after that. Bills still needed paying. Work was still work. Some nights were still lonely. Healing doesn't come with fireworks. But something fundamental had shifted inside me. I walked differently. I spoke differently. I carried myself like a man who no longer needed approval from someone who'd already shown him who they were. Word got back to me eventually. It always does. She told a few people she'd reached out to me. Some said I was cold. Others said I was strong. I didn't correct anyone. Their opinions weren't mine to manage anymore. What mattered was this. I'd stopped confusing kindness with obligation. Over time, I rebuilt in small, unremarkable ways. I upgraded the apartment, got a better couch, framed a few photos from trips I'd taken alone, started hosting small dinners for friends I trusted, the ones who'd stayed quiet during the chaos, but showed up afterward. I learned how to enjoy my own company. That might sound simple, but it's not, especially after you've spent years defining yourself as part of a we. Dating became less about filling a gap and more about sharing space. I didn't rush. I didn't overshare. I didn't ignore red flags just to avoid being alone again. And the strangest part? I stopped thinking about Jennifer entirely. Not in anger. Not in longing. She just faded. Like a chapter you don't reread because you already know how it ends. Every now and then, I think back to that courtroom smile. The one people misunderstood. The one some folks thought meant I'd given up. But I hadn't given up. I'd let go. There's a difference most people don't realize until it's too late. Letting go doesn't mean you lost. It means you chose not to carry what was never yours to fix. Midway through all this reflection, I found myself asking a question I never expected. Would I do it the same way again? And honestly, I think I would. Not because it was painless. Not because it was easy. But because that pain stripped away the parts of me that stayed silent to keep the peace. Looking back now, I wonder if I'd do it all the same way again. What about you? If you could go back and handle your worst betrayal differently, would you? Or was the pain necessary to become who you are now? Let me know below. I read more of those comments than you might think. These days, my life isn't loud. It's steady. Mornings start with coffee and a window cracked open. Evenings end with a book or a quiet walk. No chaos. No drama. And peace, folks, real peace, is underrated. The man I am now isn't harder. He's clearer. He knows where his boundaries are. He knows what he brings to the table. And he knows that walking away doesn't mean you weren't enough. It means you finally decided you were. Time is a way of sanding down the sharp edges of memory. What once felt unbearable becomes something you can hold without bleeding. Not because it didn't matter, but because you learned how to carry it. When people ask me now how I stayed so calm through everything, I tell them the truth. I wasn't calm at first. I was just quiet long enough to hear myself think. Long enough to realize that dignity doesn't come from winning arguments. It comes from knowing when not to fight at all. Here's what I learned, folks. Betrayal doesn't always deserve rage. Sometimes it deserves distance. Because distance is where clarity lives. And clarity is what lets you move forward without dragging the past behind you. I didn't forgive Jennifer in some dramatic, ceremonial way. Forgiveness, for me, wasn't about letting her off the hook. It was about unhooking myself. About choosing a future that didn't revolve around what someone else had done to me. So here's my final question for you, and I really want to hear your thoughts. Is it better to forgive and move on, or to make sure they understand exactly what they lost? There's no wrong answer. Drop it in the comments. If you're listening to this, and you're in the middle of your own storm, hear me clearly. Silence can be strength. Walking away can be power. And smiling doesn't always mean you're losing. Sometimes it means you're already free. So that's my story, folks. If it resonated with you, go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and tell me in the comments where you're listening from. I want to know how far Uncle Mickle's voice travels. And I'll leave you with this. The strongest move you'll ever make isn't proving your worth to someone who couldn't see it. It's building a life so full that their absence no longer matters.